This is the story of a night I can never forget. A night that started like any other, but turned into something I still don't understand completely. I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I was working as a taxi driver. I've shared this story only with a few people because most don't believe it. But I swear, every word is true. It was a cold October night. I remember because the wind was sharp and I had my jacket zipped all the way up, hands in gloves, waiting inside my taxi near the old bus station. It was a slow night. Hardly any passengers. I was thinking of going home early when I got a call from the dispatch. A woman needed a ride from the outskirts of town, near the forest road. That area was quiet, almost deserted, especially at night, but I needed the money, so I didn't say no. I turned on the engine and drove off. It took me around 20 minutes to reach the place. There was no house in sight, just a narrow gravel road and a streetlight flickering above. I waited there for a bit, looking around, and just when I thought maybe it was a prank, I saw her. She walked out of the woods slowly, wearing a long black coat. Her hair was long and messy, and her face was pale, almost too pale. She didn't look injured or scared, just quiet, calm. She opened the back door and sat down without saying a word. "Where to, ma'am?" I asked, glancing at her in the mirror. She said one word, soft and cold. Home. That was it. Just home. I turned back and asked, "Can you give me the address?" She looked up at me in the mirror. Her eyes were dark, like there was no light in them at all. "Just drive. I'll tell you where to turn." A part of me wanted to cancel the ride. Something about her felt off, but another part of me didn't want to be rude, or worse, lose the fare. So I nodded and started driving. She guided me through roads I didn't know existed. Roads with no signs, barely any lights, and trees on both sides that looked like they were reaching out. At one point, I asked, "Are you sure this is the way?" She replied, still calmly, "Yes, just keep going." As we drove deeper into the woods, the GPS stopped working. My phone had no signal. Even the radio turned into a mess of static and whispers. I don't know how to explain it, but I swear I heard voices in that static. Faint voices, like people, crying or screaming. Every time I looked at the rearview mirror, she was just sitting there, staring straight ahead, not blinking, not moving, just sitting there like a statue. At one point, I looked back again, and for a second, I swear, she wasn't there. I slammed the brakes. I turned around fully, heart racing, only to see her sitting again, exactly where she was. She looked at me and said, "Why did you stop?" I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry. I forced a weak laugh and said, "Thought I saw something." She smiled, but not like a normal person. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was cold, empty. "Don't worry," she whispered. "We're almost there." We drove for another 5 minutes until she said, "Stop here." I looked around. There was nothing. No house, no lights. Just an open field and tall grass waving in the wind. I turned to her and asked, "Are you sure?" She nodded. She got out of the car and stood in front of the taxi. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Her feet. They weren't touching the ground. She was floating, just a few inches, but clear enough to see. I blinked, hard, thinking my eyes were playing tricks. But when I looked again, she was still there, floating, watching me. Then she turned and pointed to the field. "Come with me," she said softly. I shook my head. "No, ma'am. I think I'll just stay in the car." She stepped closer. The car's headlights lit up her face, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. Her skin wasn't pale, it was gray, and her eyes, they were black, like there was nothing inside her, no soul, no life, just darkness. She opened her mouth to say something, but all I heard was a horrible screech, like metal being torn apart. I covered my ears and looked away, and then she was gone. I sat there frozen, breathing hard. The field in front of me was empty. I started the car and turned around as fast as I could. I didn't care if the roads were narrow or dark. I just wanted to get out of there. Every tree I passed looked like it was watching me. The wind howled through the branches like whispers chasing the car. When I finally reached the main road and got back into town, I stopped at the first gas station I saw. I went inside, grabbed a bottle of water, and tried to calm down. The guy behind the counter looked at me and said, "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile and said, "Something like that." Then I asked him, just out of curiosity, "Hey, do you know if there's a house down the forest road, past the gravel path?" He frowned. "Forest road? You mean the one that goes into the old field?" "Yeah." He shook his head slowly. "There used to be a house there, a long time ago. Burned down. Whole family died. They say the daughter's body was never found." My heart stopped. "People say she still walks that road," he continued, "trying to find her way back home." I didn't say anything. I just nodded, thanked him, and left. Since that night, I stopped driving late. I never go near that road again. And sometimes when I drive alone at night, I feel something behind me, like someone is sitting there, quiet, watching. I never check the rearview mirror anymore. So if you ever become a taxi driver, and you get a call to pick someone up near the forest, just say you're busy. Trust me. This story is about one of the most terrifying nights I ever had as a taxi driver. I still remember every moment like it happened yesterday. It's not something I tell many people because most wouldn't believe it. But I want you to listen carefully because what I'm about to tell you might change the way you think about picking up strangers at night. It was a quiet, rainy night. The kind where the streets shine from the wet and the air smells cold and heavy. I had been driving for hours and was tired, hoping to finish my shift soon. The city was almost empty, just a few people rushing under umbrellas. I was parked near a busy street, waiting for my next ride, when my phone buzzed with a request. "Pick up at 5th and Maple, female passenger, destination unknown." That last part made me pause, but I accepted. The money was good on weekends, and I needed it. When I arrived at the corner of 5th and Maple, the rain was pouring harder. I turned off my headlights to avoid blinding anyone and looked around. No one was there. Then, just as I was about to call dispatch to check if the request was a mistake, I saw her. She was standing under a broken street lamp, soaked from the rain, wearing a long white dress that looked out of place for a night like this. Her hair was wet and stuck to her face, and her skin was unusually pale, almost glowing in the dim light. She didn't move at first, just stared at me with wide, dark eyes. I unlocked the door and she slid inside without saying a word. "Where to?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked straight ahead and whispered, "Anywhere." That answer was strange, but I shrugged it off. Maybe she was just confused or didn't want to talk. I started the meter and pulled away from the curb. At first, she stayed silent, just watching the rain drip down the window. Then, after a few minutes, she spoke in a voice so soft I had to lean forward to hear. "Can you take me somewhere far? Far from here?" "Sure," I said, though I was already feeling uneasy. "Any place in particular?" She didn't answer, just kept staring out the window. I decided to take the highway, hoping it would be faster and safer. But as we drove, further from the city, the lights got dimmer, and the road twisted into dark, narrow paths. The rain slowed, but a thick fog began to rise, hiding the road ahead. I glanced at her in the mirror. She was still pale, but now her eyes looked strange, like they were glowing faintly in the dark. I told myself it was just the fog reflecting the streetlights. Suddenly my radio crackled and went silent. I reached to turn it off, but it wouldn't respond. Then I heard a strange sound, like whispers, coming from the speakers. The words were too soft to understand, but the tone was cold and angry. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the road. But the whispers got louder, mixed with low moans and a distant scream. I swallowed hard and looked back at her. She was smiling, now, a slow, creepy smile. "Do you hear them?" she asked. Hear who? I forced a laugh, but my heart was pounding. The voices, she said. They're all around us. I shook my head. There's nothing here but fog and rain. She reached over and touched my arm. Her skin was ice cold. I jerked away. Then, the car shook like something hit it. I slammed on the brakes, but the wheels kept spinning on the wet road. The fog thickened, and suddenly, the headlights went out. Everything went dark. I sat there, frozen. My hands gripped the steering wheel, so hard my knuckles turned white. The whispers turned into clear voices now, calling my name, laughing at me. I felt something cold touch my neck, like icy fingers brushing against my skin. Drive, the woman said softly. I didn't want to, but the car started moving on its own. The fog cleared for a moment, and I saw the road ahead, but it wasn't a road at all. It was a graveyard. Tombstones stretched as far as I could see, some broken, others covered in moss. The air smelled like wet earth and decay. My stomach turned. Where are we? I asked, voice shaking. Home, she said. I looked, back at her. She was no longer the pale woman in the white dress. Her face was twisted, eyes black as coal, and teeth sharp like a predator's. Her smile was full of malice. The car slowed to a stop. I wanted to get out, to run away, but my body wouldn't move. The doors locked themselves. The windows fogged. Up, hiding everything outside except for one shadow that was walking toward us. A tall figure dressed all in black. The woman laughed. You brought me back. The shadow stopped at the car, raised a hand, and suddenly the door behind me unlocked. I didn't hesitate. I jumped out and ran as fast as I could through the graveyard. I didn't look back until I was outside near the city lights. The woman and the shadow were gone. The fog disappeared. I got back in my taxi, locked the doors, and didn't move until the sun came up. That was the last night I ever picked up a stranger without knowing where they wanted to go. I quit driving a taxi soon after. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear that whisper on the radio again, calling my name. And I wonder if she's still out there, waiting for someone to take her home. This story I'm about to tell you is one of the scariest things that ever happened to me while I was driving a taxi. It still haunts me sometimes when I'm alone at night. You probably won't believe it, but I swear it's true. Just listen, carefully. It was a Friday night in November, cold and cloudy. I was working late, trying to make extra money. The streets were mostly empty, and the city lights looked dull under the thick clouds. I had been driving for about 8 hours and was ready to call it a night soon. Around midnight, I got a call for a pickup on Elm Street, near the old part of town. I didn't know much about that area, but I accepted. The dispatcher said it was a female passenger requesting a ride to somewhere downtown. I hoped it would be a quick trip so I could finally get home. When I arrived at the pickup spot, the street was almost deserted. I saw a woman standing under a flickering street lamp. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s, with long brown hair and a gray coat. She didn't smile or say anything as she got into the back seat. "Where to?" I asked politely. She replied, in a soft voice, "The Pinewood Apartments." I nodded and pulled away from the curb. As we drove, I tried to make small talk. "Cold night, huh?" She didn't answer. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale and her eyes looked tired. I thought maybe she had a long day or was feeling sick. The ride was quiet. The roads were slick from a recent rain, and the city was unusually still. I took the highway and then some side streets, following her directions. About halfway through the trip, she suddenly said, "Can you stop for a moment? I want to smoke." I didn't expect that. "Sure," I said, pulling over near an empty parking lot. She opened the door and stepped out. I watched her for a second, then decided to stretch my legs too. The night was quiet except for the soft hum of distant traffic. After a few minutes, she got back in the car, but something was wrong. She was shivering, and her eyes looked different, darker, almost hollow. "Let's go," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I started the car, but as soon as I did, the radio suddenly burst to life with static, and a strange old song playing backwards. The words were distorted, and the melody was haunting. I tried to turn it off, but the dial wouldn't move. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made the hair on my neck stand up. "Do you like it?" she asked. "Not really," I muttered, feeling uneasy. We drove on. The streets grew darker and more isolated. The buildings looked older, some boarded up with broken windows. I was sure I was driving through parts of the city I had never seen before. Then the car started to act strange. The engine sputtered, the lights flickered, and the speedometer jumped wildly. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a figure appeared in front of the car. I slammed the brakes, but it was too late. We stopped inches away from a tall man standing in the middle of the road. He was dressed in a long black coat and had a pale face with sunken eyes. His hair was messy and his hands hung loosely at his sides. I froze. The woman in the back seat turned and looked at the man. Then, without warning, she reached over the front seat and opened the passenger door. The man stepped inside calmly. Didn't move. The man sat next to me, his eyes locked on mine. "Hello, James," he said in a low voice. I couldn't speak. My throat was dry. "Do I know you?" I managed to ask. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You don't remember me, but I've been waiting for you." The woman behind me giggled softly. "He's scared." I looked at her. "Who are you?" I asked. She leaned forward and whispered, "I'm the one who brought him here." The man's eyes flashed. "You shouldn't have picked me up." I felt the car's temperature drop suddenly, like a cold wind passing through. My breath came, out in small clouds. "Where are you taking me?" I demanded. The man smiled wider. "To the place where lost souls belong." My heart pounded. I tried to open the door, but it was locked tight. The windows fogged up, and I couldn't see outside anymore. The radio crackled again, and the song played backward louder than before. The man and the woman laughed together. Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was sitting alone in the taxi parked outside the Pinewood apartments. The radio was off, the engine cold. I looked around. No sign of the woman or the man. I unlocked the door and stepped outside, shaking. I swear, I never saw that woman or man again. After that night, I stopped driving late. I never picked up anyone from that part of town. And sometimes, when I'm alone in my car at night, I hear the radio crackle to life, playing that same backward song. If you ever get a ride request late at night, especially from an unknown place, be careful. You never know who might get inside your car. This story is about one of the strangest and scariest nights I ever had as a taxi driver. I don't tell many people because it sounds too weird to be true. But believe me, it really happened. So, sit back and listen carefully, because this story might make you think twice before getting into a taxi late at night. It was a chilly autumn evening, the kind where the wind blows cold and leaves rustle on the sidewalks. I was driving my old yellow cab around the city, hoping to finish my shift soon. The streets were quiet, and most people had already gone home. I was tired, but still alert, watching the road and waiting for my next call. Around 11 p.m., my phone beeped with a new request. Pick up at Willow Street, near the old church. The dispatcher said it was a male passenger going somewhere in the suburbs. I accepted and headed that way. When I arrived, the street was empty except for one man standing under a dim street lamp. He looked middle-aged, with messy brown hair, and a dark jacket zipped up to his neck. He got in without saying a word. "Where to, sir?" I asked. He gave me an address in the suburbs and leaned back, staring out the window. His eyes were tired but sharp, like he had been through a lot. The ride started normally. The radio played soft music, and the city lights blurred past us. I tried to start a conversation. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded but didn't speak. As we drove farther from the city center, the streets grew narrower and darker. The houses looked older, some abandoned. The night felt heavier. I glanced in the rearview mirror and noticed something strange. The man wasn't just staring out the window. He was watching me. His eyes seemed to follow every move I made. It made me uncomfortable. Suddenly, he spoke in a low, calm voice. "You know why you do this job, don't you?" I shrugged. To make money, I guess. No, he said. You drive because you want to see the city's secrets, the things people don't talk about. I laughed nervously. I just like meeting people. He smiled, but it wasn't warm. Some people you meet are not what they seem. The car radio crackled, then went silent. The music stopped, and an eerie silence filled the cab. The man's smile grew wider. I see you've noticed, he said. Noticed what? I asked, trying to keep calm. Something wrong with your taxi. I checked the dashboard. The lights flickered, and the engine sounded off. I tried to restart the radio, but it wouldn't turn on. Suddenly, the man leaned forward and whispered, "They're coming." Who? I asked, heart pounding. Shadows. Lost souls. I looked outside and saw nothing but empty road and dark trees. The car began to shake slightly, like something was trying to push it off the road. I gripped the steering wheel tight and tried to focus on driving. Then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a person needing help, but as we got closer, I saw it was a woman, dressed in white, with long hair covering her face. She stood perfectly still, like a statue. The man behind me laughed softly. See? They follow. I didn't know what to do. Should I stop and help, or drive away fast? Suddenly, the woman lifted her head, revealing empty black eyes. She smiled a horrible smile and started walking toward the car. I slammed on the brakes, but the car skidded on wet leaves. The woman vanished. I looked back at the man. "Did you see that?" I asked, voice shaking. He nodded calmly. "I told you, you're in their world now." "What do you mean?" "This is just a ride," I said, panic rising. He leaned closer and whispered, "You crossed into the land between life and death." The road ahead turned dark and twisted. Trees bent unnaturally, and strange shadows moved between them. My heart raced. I tried to turn around, but the car wouldn't respond. It was like something else was controlling it. The man's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "We all have a place. Here," he said. "Some come back. Others don't." I was frozen with fear. Then, the radio turned back on by itself, playing a slow, haunting melody. The woman in white appeared again, now sitting on the hood of the car, staring at me. Screamed and slammed on the horn. The melody stopped. The car finally moved forward. After what felt like hours, the road opened back to a normal street. The man looked at me and said, "You made it." I didn't say anything. When we reached the address, he opened the door and stepped out. Before he left, he turned and said, "Remember, not all passengers are just people. Some carry shadows with them." Then, he disappeared into the night. I never found out who he was, or what that strange woman was. After that night, I avoided driving near that old church and stopped picking up rides after midnight. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that haunting melody on the radio when I'm alone, and I wonder if I ever really left that dark road behind. This story is one I still can't forget, no matter how much time has passed. It's about a night when everything felt wrong, and I realized being a taxi driver can bring you face to face with things you don't want to believe. So listen carefully. This is the story of the night I picked up a passenger who changed everything. It was a cold October evening. The wind was strong, and the city felt empty. I had been driving for about 10 hours and was ready to go home. But the calls kept coming. Around 10:30 p.m., my radio buzzed with a new request, a pickup at the corner of Maple Avenue and 7th Street. It was a lonely spot near an old gas station. The dispatcher said the passenger was a man asking to be taken to a hotel downtown. I drove there, hoping for a quick trip. When I arrived, I saw a man standing by the streetlight. He looked normal at first. Average height, short blonde hair, and wearing a dark jacket. But there was something odd about him. His eyes were too bright, almost glowing under the dim streetlight. He didn't smile or say hello. He just got into the back seat silently. "Where to?" I asked, trying to sound friendly. "The Rosewood Hotel," he said, voice low and calm. I nodded and started driving. The roads were quiet, and the city's nightlights flickered as we moved. I glanced in the mirror. The man was watching me. His eyes were fixed on my face, studying me like he was searching for something. "Long day?" I tried to break the silence. He didn't answer. After a few minutes, he suddenly said, "Have you ever seen someone disappear?" I was confused. "Disappear? What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "People vanish in this city, not just leaving, but gone, like they were never there." I shivered. "Sounds like a scary story." He nodded. "It's real. I'm here because of those people." I wanted to ask more, but the streetlights flickered and then went out. We were surrounded by darkness, with only the faint glow of the dashboard lighting the cars inside. The man leaned forward and whispered, "This is the part of the city no one talks about." Suddenly, my phone rang, but when I tried to answer, the screen showed nothing. The radio crackled with strange noises, like whispers. I felt a cold chill in the air. The man's eyes gleamed brighter. Out of nowhere, the headlights caught movement on the road ahead. A woman stood in the middle of the street. She was wearing a long white dress, her hair flowing like smoke in the wind. I slowed down, but didn't stop. The man said quietly, "She's one of them." I didn't understand. "She's a lost soul," he explained. "People who disappeared." The woman stepped forward, but the car wouldn't move. The engine stalled. I tried to start it again, but it wouldn't turn on. "Don't be afraid," the man said. "They won't harm you if you don't look at them." I swallowed hard and kept my eyes on the road. Then the woman disappeared. Suddenly, the man laughed softly. "You're lucky. Most drivers get stuck here forever." My heart was pounding. I tried again to start the car. This time, it roared to life. We drove on, but the city looked different now. The buildings were old and broken, the streets cracked and empty. The man said, "You're seeing the city beneath the city, the one no one visits." I didn't say a word. I just kept driving. Then the man turned and looked at me with a serious face. "Do you want to know why I'm here?" I nodded. He told me a story. Years ago, he was a taxi driver like me. One night, he picked up a passenger who never reached his destination. Since then, he was trapped between this world and the next. Now, he was searching for someone to replace him. I swallowed hard. "You want me to take your place?" He smiled sadly. "You already accepted the ride." I wanted to say no, to get out of the car, but the doors locked themselves. The radio played that strange whispering again. I felt hands on my shoulders, but when I looked back, no one was there. The car began to slow down. The man said, "Don't be afraid. It's just the next step." I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I was parked outside the Rosewood Hotel. The man was gone. I unlocked the doors and stepped out, shaking. After that night, I quit driving late shifts. Sometimes, I still hear that whispering on the radio, and I wonder if the city's lost souls are still out there, waiting for their next ride.